So we're starting Unit 2, and our first learning objective is about the order of operations. All right, so why do we have the order of operations? Let's say we had this expression. There's a lot of different answers you could get if we kind of just did it in whatever order we want. For instance, you just go all left to right. You could do 2 times 3 is 6. Then 6 minus 4 is 2. And 2 times 2 is 4. So that's one way you could do it. You could also do it right to left. So the first thing I do is 4 times 2 is 8. And 3 minus 8 is -5. That gives me -10. So I get these two different answers because I did it in two different ways. But the order of operations, just make sure we get the all simplify in the same way, so we're all going to get the same answer. All right, so the order, if you learned this before, you probably learned PEMDAS as the order of operations. I'm just going to make a couple changes to that to make it more broad. So instead of starting with the P, which is parentheses, we're going to start with a G for grouping. So the first thing you do is any grouping. So if you have a bunch of stuff inside of parentheses or inside of brackets, you do those things inside of those first. And just one other thing you have to be careful is that if you have a big fraction bar with some stuff on top and the stuff on the bottom, this is actually a grouping. It's telling you to do all this stuff on the top and all this stuff on the bottom and then divide. So grouping, there's a bunch of different groupings. That's why we're kind of expanding from just parentheses. All right, next is exponents. So if you have something like 2 cubed, all right, that's the next thing you would do, and that's just 2 times 2 times 2, which is 8. All right, so that's the next thing you would do is exponents. And then PEMDAS kind of has multiplication before division, but you kind of do them at the same time as long as you do them from left to right. So if we had something like 2 divided by 3 times 4, even though the M comes before the D in PEMDAS, we're still going to do this 2 divided by 3 first, because division and multiplication are really just the same thing in a slightly different way. So we just do them at the same time, but left to right, so we know which direction everyone's doing it. And addition and subtraction is the same thing. All right, they're kind of just opposites of each other, so we're not going to do all addition first and then all subtraction. We'll just do addition and subtraction all the way from left to right. All right, so as long as you do these in order, all right, these groupings in order, then everyone will get the same answer when we try to simplify an expression. All right, so here's our first example. Again, the first thing we'll do is looking for groupings, and the most common groupings you'll see are parentheses. All right, so we're going to simplify inside these parentheses first. So 3 minus 2 is 1. And keep everything else the same. And I can also simplify inside of this grouping. 1 plus 3 is 4. All right, now the next thing, we've got simplified all the groupings. Once you just have like a single number in a grouping, you can't do anything else with it. So now the next thing is exponents. So we're going to do this exponent 2. All right, and just to recall it, exponent just means you multiply something by itself that many times. So 1 squared is just 1 times 1, which is 1. All right, now we've done all the exponents. Now we do look for any multiplications and divisions. There's one multiplication that's 4 times 4, which is 16. And then we finish adding 17. All right, so as long as you follow the order of operations, everyone should get 17 because we're all doing these things in the same order. All right, here's another one. And again, this was mentioned in the slide about the order. It's this big division bar here is actually, you can think about it, there being like brackets or parentheses around this stuff. It's telling you to simplify the whole top, simplify the whole bottom, and then do the division. All right, so the first thing we can do if we're thinking about simplifying the top is there's a grouping there. So I can rewrite that as 1 minus 3 is -2. And the bottom, again, it's a whole grouping, so you can kind of simplify it separately, but I'll just kind of do all the orders or all the operations together. So now we did that one grouping that was on the top. Then on the top we have an exponent, so we do -2 squared. Again, -2 squared is -2 times -2. And because you have that, those two negatives being multiplied, you get a +4. Then I can add on the bottom. And again, you could have done that earlier because it's technically its own grouping on the bottom. Right, and then we would divide, but 4 over 5 doesn't simplify or anything like that. So if you were going to put this in a calculator, now you would put in 4 divided by 5 and get 0.8. All right, but for us, generally, we want to keep it as the fraction. So 4 over 5 is this one simplified. All right, so now it's your turn. Go ahead and try this one. The only thing you have to be careful with is this cubed. We haven't had it cubed yet, but again, an exponent just means you multiply a number by itself that many times. You're going to multiply it by itself 3 times to do the cube. All right, so go ahead and try that problem. And this is what I got. So groupings first, you add those things together. Exponent next, 4 squared is 16. 2 cubed is 2, times 2 is 4, times another 2 is 8. We do our multiplications, and then we can subtract to get our final answer. All right, so one thing that goes along with order of operations, and a thing we'll have to do a lot in Algebra 2, is replace a variable with a value and then figure out what the expression should be. So really this is an order of operations problem with one extra step. We replace the variable with that number, and then we simplify using the order of operations. So we have this expression 3x minus 2x squared, and we want to evaluate it when x is -1. So we're going to replace all these x's up here, all right, every single x with a -1. And the important thing to remember is you're just replacing the x. So just kind of these green boxes I'm putting, just the -1s are going to go there. So the 3 is going to stay. I'm replacing an x with a -1. I like to use parentheses when I plug something in so I can tell the difference between a negative sign and a subtraction sign. 2, again, this -1, the x is becoming -1, and then I have the squared there. One thing to be careful with is there's a difference between this, which we have. 2x squared means just the x is being squared, versus this means the 2 and the x are being squared. So when I write this 2 exponent is only going to the -1, not the 2. Right. But now I do the order of operations. First thing, no groupings because everything in the parentheses is just a number. So the first thing I have to do is this exponent. -1 squared is -1 times -1 is +1. Now I do my multiplications, and then I can do the subtraction. -3 minus 2 is -5. This is something we'll have to do a lot throughout the whole year, and especially in this unit. Right, we have an expression, and then we replace the variables, most likely an x, with some number, and we want to simplify. All right, so here's one for you to try on your own. You want to evaluate this expression when x equals 2. And here's what I got when I do this. So you replace all the x's with 2's. So those are going to be those 2's there. Again, this division bar is going to act as a big grouping. So I'm kind of doing the order operations on the top and the order operations on the bottom, and then I combine them at the end. So do the multiplications first. Then those additions, I get 7 over 5. Chances are that's the way you want to leave it. But if you wanted to get the actual decimal, 7 divided by 5 is 1.4. All right, so it's the order of operations, replacing that variable with the number, and then again, it's just simplifying after that. So there's just one extra step over the first half of the video. All right, one thing I decided to do in this unit is to get rid of the multiple choice question to make the videos go a little bit faster. So you still have options to try the problems on your own during those little times where the video pauses. All right, so you can still figure out pretty quickly if you understand the concept or not, if you're getting those try it on your own questions correct. And if you do, then you can probably go into the skill check a little bit quicker. If you're getting the try it on your own is wrong, that's when you want to get help and either call me over or try to do some practice and figure out kind of what you don't understand. All right, so we're skipping the multiple choice just to help the speed of the class so you can do the videos a little bit quicker.